So it came across the news wire just a little bit ago that the Senate's attempt to pass some kind of funding measures have failed, and therefore the government shutdown will apparently continue on throughout the weekend and into next week. On the heels of that, the Dow Jones still closed up 230 some odd points, but at one point this morning I saw it was up over 500 points, with the NASDAQ and the S&P also being heavily in the green. For whatever reason, they, at the close today, pretty much finished flat, NASDAQ down just a few points. But the stock market continues to pretty much shrug off the government shutdown, all right? And I saw something this morning out of CNBC that I thought was worth sharing. Two stories, actually. The first one is entitled "The Wealth of the Top 1% Reaches a Record $52 trillion." And the reason why I want to share with you feeds into today's topic is because of the wealth that's been generated, especially in the second quarter, in the stock market. Okay, so top 10% of Americans added $5 trillion to their wealth in the second quarter, as the stock market rally continued to benefit the biggest investors, according to new data from the Federal Reserve. So the total wealth of the top 10%, or those with a net worth of more than $2 million, it says, reached a record $113 trillion in the second quarter. That's up from $108 trillion in the first quarter. The increase follows 3 years of continued growth for those at the top, with the top 10% adding over $40 trillion to their wealth since 2020. And right, we discuss it all the time on this channel, how the wealth gap is getting wider and wider. But listen to the rest of the show today, because this thing is about to, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week or next month, about to come full circle, okay? So this is the biggest driver of wealth gains at the top has been, of course, the stock market. The value of the corporate equities and mutual fund shares held by the top 10% increased from $39 trillion to over $44 trillion over the past year. The top 10% of Americans hold over 87% of corporate equities and mutual fund shares. All right, so it's concentrated at the top, the wealth, but also the risk pyramid, okay? And so when this thing turns, and it will, it's going to be ugly. Let me share the second story out of CNBC, where the Goldman Sachs CEO is making some pretty startling admissions. Before I jump into that last story, as I always humbly ask you guys, if you're not subscribed to the channel, if you please hit that subscribe button for me so we can keep growing the community. I do really appreciate it very much. So this Goldman Sachs CEO, David Solomon, okay, he's out and warning that there will be a stock market drawdown. And he uses the word, and I'll share the story with you, reset. There will be a reset. And he says people won't feel good. So CNBC today, stock markets are due a drawdown in the next year or two after years of being propelled to record highs by an AI frenzy, according to Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon. Markets run in cycles. And whenever we've historically had a significant acceleration in a new technology, right, that creates a lot of capital formation and therefore lots of interesting new companies around you, right? Interesting choice of words, interesting. Generally see the market run ahead of potential, right? Think about that. So what the head of one of the largest banks in the United States says that this massive amount of AI capital is flooding in the market right now, and what you see is the euphoria, okay, the mania, if you will, in the markets get ahead of the potential. Much of this stuff is yet to be proven. Many of these startup companies have yet to let's say, get, earn their stripes, so to speak. Yet they're being chased with tons and tons and tons of money, and the stock values keep rising. All right. He says that the mass adoption of the internet. Again, this is the comparison that we're talking about. I shared on a show a few days ago. The adoption of the internet in the late 1990s and early 2000s led to the emergence of some of the world's largest companies, but also, he said, saw investors lose money to what became known as the dot-com bubble. And if you look up the statistics, what happened was most of those dot-com stocks were on the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ lost 78% of its value from top to bottom over about a 2-year span after the late 1990s stock market crash. Okay, so he says that also saw some investors lose money. Well, 78% drop in the NASDAQ, a massive amount of people lost money. And I believe the stat I shared on a show the other day, it took something like 15 years for those people to recover the losses, right? For the market, the NASDAQ to get back to where it was with that drop. He says, you're going to see a similar phenomenon here. Okay, he's saying it's going to happen again, just like it did with the dot-com, because not all this AI technology is going to succeed. Not all the companies will succeed, yet everyone's piling in. He said, I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 12 to 24 months, we see a drawdown with respect to equity markets. I think that there will be a lot of capital that's deployed that will turn out not to deliver returns. And when that happens, people won't feel good. An AI boom has gripped global markets in recent years, according to the article, with a slew of new technologies, multi-billion-dollar deals, and the continued rise of the ChatGPT developer OpenAI. Right? Investors have bet big on the tech and pour capital into stocks like Microsoft, Alphabet, Palantir, and NVIDIA. The buzz around AI, it says, has helped to push indices on Wall Street and beyond to record highs. Okay, and that's where we are at right now. Hence the reason for the title of the thumbnail today, that the mania phase is here. And here's what he goes on to say, and I'll wrap it up. He says, I'm not going to use the word bubble, of course not, right? But I don't know what the path will be. But I do know people are out on the risk curve because they're excited, Solomon said today. And when investors are excited, they tend to think about the good things that can go right, and they diminish the things you should be skeptical about that can go wrong. There will be here he goes, this is the quote, there will be a reset. There will be a check at some point. There will be a drawdown. To the extent of that will depend on how long this goes, he added, goes meaning the run up. Okay? And, if we think about that, what he's saying is the higher this thing, the longer this continues to, make, all-time high after all-time high in the markets, the higher it goes, the more it will have to fall. Okay, that's the reality of what has happened time after time. Okay, and we also got Jeff Bezos out speaking at the same event that Solomon was, and Bezos said on Friday that artificial intelligence is currently in an industrial bubble. The words industrial bubble were his quote. And you've also got, of course, Leon Koopman out earlier in the week on CNBC saying that we're in the late innings of a bull market. So Solomon concludes by saying, well, I sleep very well at night. I'm not going to bed every night worried about what will happen next. Generally speaking, I think what's super exciting is the technology is expanding and new companies are being formed. So here's a guy, right, that since last August, I pulled the stats. Since last August, he has sold approximately 20% of his stake in Goldman Sachs. 26,573 shares. I think the last sale was July or August of August of this year, a couple of months ago. Okay, so the guy, obviously is worth millions and millions of dollars, probably hundreds of millions of dollars. So he's not one of the guys that says that he's losing sleep at night. But when the rug gets pulled, and when we have the .com style crash, the 87%, right, of the wealthy that make up the stock market is going to reverberate, okay, through the economy on a massive scale. It did after the .com bust. All right, so the mania phase is here. How long will it last? Nobody knows. What will be the black swan event that sends it, kind of cascading down? Again, as you guys know, I tell you, often I'm not anti-stock market. I'm just pointing out when I see guys like Solomon coming out, of course, they can't create panic, because they don't want people running for the exits and selling, their shares off either. And so they choose their words carefully. But here's the guy that said there will be a reset. All right. That is not to be taken lightly from my perspective. All right. That's it for today. As I always say, please, if you enjoy the content, leave me a like on the video. Helps the algorithm. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button for me. And with that being said, I will talk to all of you soon. Bye.